I have doubts that From the New World is going to be as good as this from what I've seen of it, and the relatively little I've played of it, but honestly, I'm still looking forward to it. You know, sometimes you look back at some things that you say as you go through a series and just wonder where it all went so wrong. With art in general, I do my best to try to go in with some kind of optimism for whatever I'm experiencing. The critique landscape on the internet, and especially on YouTube, can really be littered with a lot of cynicism and general negativity in a way that can make me wonder more about the good sides of art that may generally be seen as extremely flawed or executed poorly. Hell, I'm a Bullet Witch defender, so I think that pretty much says everything you need to know about how I approach critique and how I seek to try to see the best in things. Not to say that everyone is always like that, or I'm so enlightened for trying to do this with these videos, but human beings can generally skew easily towards negativity, and it just gets exhausting sometimes to see online constantly. So I do my best to be critical, but otherwise as positive as I can be, honest with my intentions and fairly upfront about my experiences in regards to a piece of art. I never try to go into something with the intent to hate it. If I feel like I have that vibe with something, I tend to not make a video about it, because why waste the time and energy when I instead could find something that speaks to me, or at least go for something that I had more faith in, but just lost me in the end. To me, the worst thing something can be is either boring or striving for great potential and just burying itself alive under all of its many problems and shortcomings. This is all a really roundabout way to say that I really didn't like Shadow Hearts From the New World all that much. I wasn't expecting the world of this game. I'd heard a lot over the years about how this game killed the series, was a mess that didn't understand the others, was bad, etc. But I wanted to have faith in it, you know? Like, I think I had pretty normal and reasonable expectations. I wasn't expecting it to eclipse Covenant or Koudelka, cause in the former case, that's pretty difficult, and in the latter case, that's literally impossible. I was excited to see what is in reality a side game going for its own thing within its own setting, showing me this other side of its world and giving me some time with some new characters after the end of Yuri's journey and story. Instead, I was left with a game constantly striving for a potential that it just consistently lets down over and over and over again. I really haven't felt this truly let down by a game like this in such a long time, and it breaks my heart after how genuinely magnificent Covenant was as an overall experience. I do want to start off with what I liked though, at least, and where better to start than with the fact that this is mechanically the best playing game in the entire series. This is the best combat system in the entire series, hands down, no questions asked. This system made me look back at Covenant's already amazing systems and realize some of the flaws and holes in its design, like how you can just combo shit endlessly with no real reason or incentive not to unless you were dealing with a group, and even then you could just go for an AoE or something and keep the combo going on the enemy that you need to focus on. A lot of bosses consisted of combo strategies with no way to really stop you from just doing that over and over again, which could lead to some fights feeling a bit samey, even if still very, very fun and engaging to play. From the New World adds the stock system, double attacks and double combos to this system in order to build upon it, and ooh lord, this shit is fantastic. So the stock system is this little green bar right next to all of your stats that fills up over the course of the fights. It maxes out at 2 and is used for your alternate ways of attacking, high angle, knockdown, and hard hits, and also now for combos and double attacks. So you build up your meter through standard attacks and getting hit, and can then choose what to do from there once the meter has filled up to a certain point. Double attacks use stock in order to let a character use 2 attacks on one enemy, and double combo is that, but extended out to everybody being able to use 2 attacks each in the same combo, resulting in attacks that absolutely fuck shit up even harder than a regular combo would. This absolutely keeps combat from stagnating and keeps you on your toes to make sure that you're considering all of your options within an encounter, and balances them out by helping you consider if you should use that stock on a combo or on a hard hit to take away stock from an enemy, or use it to set up an enemy in a different way. It's just really, really well considered. And it's even better because just like how enemies could also use combos like last time, now they can also build stock in a fight and use double attacks and double combos as well. It's just so well thought out and considered. I fucking adore the changes to the combat systems because it just feels so fucking good. It really does well to get you to mix up your strategies and mix up the way you approach and tackle each fight, just like Covenant, but even better this time around. They absolutely fucking nailed it here. The magic system has also been changed again via the stellar charts instead of crests, and the riddles that were used for leveling them like last time. The way things work this time is you collect stellar charts throughout the game, and as it goes on, you collect magic and spells via stellars. Each one is assigned a certain level and type, indicating its power and how high the corresponding spot on the board needs to be before you can place it there. And you're not stuck with how the charts are by default and what they have for levels either. If you go to Buigen, Gerard from the last game's new British leather daddy boyfriend, you can level up individual spaces, change the properties so you could change a space to be an elemental space, healing or support space, decrease MP usage, and increase the effect power of the space if you choose to, putting the magic system of the game even more within your hands and however you want to build your magic characters, which is cool as absolute fuck. Again, this series continues to excel at giving you such wonderful mechanical freedom, while also throwing challenging and interesting fights that challenge your skill with playing around with the tools and mechanics at your disposal. It's going to be kind of hard going back to other JRPG battle systems after this, cause to me, this is like one of the highest combat bars I've seen since I fell in love with the speed and depth of like the FF13 series and the interesting setups and payoffs of Resonance of Fate's wonderful combat system. Like, their serious seriously is not much like Shadow Hearts, and if I'm wrong in that statement, please comment about it, because I would love to play anything with even an inkling of similarity to this game's wondrous feeling combat and systems mechanics. Fucking beautiful A+ shit. Holy fucking shit, let's talk about this side content, dog. So I haven't tended to bring up a lot of the side content in this series outside of story contexts, because in the past games, it has mostly been story relevant, and it mostly would push you towards doing a lot of it at the end to get some extra character stories near the end of the previous games. That's still here, and we'll get to a lot of that in the story section, but holy shit, the amount of side and post-game content within this package is kinda nuts. It introduces things a lot sooner than before, which is seriously really nice. A lot of the characters' side quests can basically be done as the story moves along. You meet an NPC somewhere related to them, and then can basically divert to go do their side content whenever you want from there, which is such a nice change. The map never restricts you for story reasons once you have a location unlocked, so you can bounce around and do whatever at any point. UMA hunts, cat coin grinding, whatever you feel. Again, they're like final really important quests are locked behind visiting the final dungeon at least once, but god, I'm so glad this game just lets you engage with more shit as you go along for more of their abilities and whatnot. Along with stuff like Johnny's Snap Collection and the pit fights hosted by Lovecraft, and not his cat, who we are not going to ask the name of. Do you think Lovecraft's cat is one of the cat people? There's just so much shit to do in this game. That combat really gets to challenge you through these side quests as the game goes on, and there's a lot of pretty fun bits throughout them as they progress. You know, when you go through a whole series like this, and you hit the last one, I feel like it's even easier to take in the locations. The scenery, the vibes, the feelings each location gives, even better. You end up savoring more of what the game is doing with its art direction and the wonderful vibes of each and every spot you visit. Last entries, when executing well on that aspect, can sit with you in ways, and I think this game's locations all manage to quite perfectly. Changing from the European and Asian settings of all of the other games in the series, this time we set our sights on the US and parts of South America as well. From the different sections of New York, like the Upper West Side, Brooklyn, Times Square, Harlem, and Chelsea, and their cozy, warm summertime vibes, people all around, just going about their regular-ass day-to-day in the city that never sleeps. Las Vegas really only being a huge casino and hotel that perfectly captures the pure, throw-it-all-away, pleasure district of the world vibe that Vegas is seen as. Roswell and its goofy 50s B-movie-ass aesthetic. The Inn, the UFO, Area 51 and its clinical science lab vibes, Ed Wood's science lab ass vibes. The truth is out there. Rio de Janeiro and its idealized tourist destination feel in the front. You got your tourists, cars, the beautiful fountain, the palm trees, planter boxes, the whole 9 yards, contrasted with the favelas, which are more run down, trash and debris are scattered everywhere, things are busted, but the culture is more apparent and present. It feels more welcoming than the tourist destination side of things does. The Caribbean pirate fort and its goofy-ass adventure serial vibes. The main pirate ship and the ghost ship all among the great blue of the sea. Honestly, even with how fairly short this whole sequence turns out to be, I just found it to be really nice. Like a relaxing detour before the game gets back onto the main plot. Oh god, that main plot. No, not yet. Not yet. The Ayuni Salt Lake and its beautiful salt tower. The spiral ramps and color-coded salt pillars make this feel like a place untouched by people for a long time. Mysterious and captivating all in one go. Its wonderful usage of color, lighting choices, and water perfectly help this dungeon feel like an ominously hopeful place, which is perfect for the MacGuffin the party seeks there. This game continues the Shadow Hearts tradition of just knocking it out of the park in the art direction department, and absolutely aces recreating real-life locations that you feel like you could stay in forever, just passing time and losing yourself in their wonderful atmosphere as you listen to their wonderful tracks, as well as creating new, weirdly fantastical places that both use fun gimmicks to keep them fresh and interesting while also selling their atmosphere so perfectly. It fucking bangs. This section isn't going to be long. I just want to say that they added a map. They did it. They really did it. The dungeons aren't a fucking nightmare to navigate anymore now that you can actually have any idea where the fuck you are in them instead of just getting lost in a goddamn maze. I do feel like some of the design for some of them could be a tad simplistic at points, but I feel like the more complex ones were far more fun to engage with now because I could keep better track of where I was and what was where using the map. It's just nice. I'm really happy they added this. Oh baby, we back at it. You know what time it is, motherfuckers. Yoshitaka Hirota back at it for the third bass banging time. We got Tomoko Emoto, we got Ryo Fukuda, and new to the roster of the goated Shadow Hearts OST pantheon is Hirotomi Emoto, composer on games for SNK such as Samurai Showdown 2, Asura Zanmaden under the alias IMO. Together, these wonderful souls have made quite possibly the best OST in this goddamn series. So let's not dilly-dally. Up first, we got From the New World. We got that starting twang of that oh-so-sexy acoustic guitar, that chill flute that will keep popping up and adding a nice bit of different spice to the texture of this album. The chanting and breakdown we're all familiar with. The fucking flute solo. This is, quite possibly, my favorite song in the series. My absolute favorite of the intros. It just goes so fucking hard, and I dig all of the differences to spice shit up, while still playing to the traditions and motifs of the series' musical choices. It's rad as fuck. Garland Office got this perfect inquisitive stinger-ass build-up that breaks into a jivin'-ass sax, sounding straight out of a 70s New York mystery with a goofier side to it. That sax hits so fucking good. The Mother Earth has got this earthy piano, horn, and flute combo that fits perfect for the map screen. Makes you feel good and ready to go on this journey. Dead fingers talk. Oh, hell fucking yeah they do. Honestly reminds me of a different version of Brainhopper from the first game. Those vocals, that drum, that twang, that static, those vocals. Like, holy fuck, it's such a step up and it fits the intensity of the fights perfectly yet again. Kiss of Malice is a fucking banger, dude. I know I'm saying that a lot, but my god, the light hand drumming breaking into a crunchy breakcore, speedcore ass beat and back down again so that tragic violin can come back in. The duality of the curse being placed upon whomever receives the curse. The calming flute coming in the end to settle the whole thing. So fucking good. Such a perfect fucking song. Moi Malo is like a panic attack at the local orchestral performance with an EDM group playing very loudly next door. The static, the synth, or piano hitting like a countdown clock, going down to some unknown yet terrifying end with some kind of twisted and distorted vocals peering through the sides of it all. Gotta get the fuck out of there to this beat. Light crossing border, the drums starting it off, the metal scratching and beating, the bell chimes, giving it a glimmer of hope through the tension like a hot knife cutting through your soul. The chanting vocals, the underlying Halloween opening ass beat. Adios is this low-key, nice acoustic guitar heartfelt ballad. Makes you feel like someone has gone far away, but the fight to see them again towards those happy moments carries through those strings. Ricardo is the best because he bears his soul through those strings.
Heavy density
Starts forebodingly. A crowded thudding and low synthy buzz carries into a grungy guitar and piano that comes in. Mixed with heavy drums, the entire atmosphere of the track feels like a complete weight upon you. Like the pressure around you is getting tighter and tighter, unwilling to let go. Nada has this beautiful seaside tragedy to it. What sounds like ocean waves accompany a piano that sounds like occasionally somebody is slipping a key or two. Something about it hurts. You can feel the sadness within it. Dry Flower, in contrast, is a track that feels like it's looking much more on the brighter side. The romantic violin and warm piano and beautiful acoustic guitar string plucks hit the heart so perfectly. It makes me feel at home. Moave coming in like a B-side to Dead Fingers Talk. That wonderful piano changing things up. The flute and the drum bringing that intense energy to the battles you're fighting. The clash of that cymbal. Shit hits. Oh, baby, it's Dreamcatcher time. The build with that, what sounds like a tambourine, I think, that low buzz, the chimes, the hint of that fucking bass, until it finally just fucking goes for it with the perfect triple attack twang of those guitars. All building with the addition of the violin and that flute. Oh my fucking god, that flute. Oh yes. This song has such fucking flavor to it. It just builds on top of what it lays down so well. Absolutely one of my favorite bangers within the entire game. It rules. Oh wow, another favorite. Who would have guessed? Malice slaps. The crunch, that guitar, those bells or chimes, as that guitar gets crunchier, grungier, more static. This has fucking texture, noise, bubbly static, subterranean vocals, the ominous lowering chant that comes in, fluctuating between lighter and lower as that crunch builds back up. This song just fills me with a kind of metallic joy. Shit just fucking goes and goes and goes, and it hits the absolute dread and horror it's supposed to convey. It's perfect to me. Lady Tears, Astral Tears starts tragically. That sad, melancholy piano, the loss painted with such a longing brush. I don't think this is a good moment writing-wise, but the music on its own sells the pain she's feeling oh so well, full of tragic sorrow and total pain. What to do from there? Maybe contemplation, maybe redemption, or maybe hit back. Building up using this organ Parasite Eve ass melody. These vocals coming up to show that shit's serious. Too much pain, too much anger, can't think straight. The horns, that organ hitting just right, the drums picking up. It's time to stop fucking around and it's time to fight. Those same horns, the piano, a complete mess, with the vocals going wherever they can. No time to listen. All there is time to move, time to fight, time to kill, time to groove. tragedy of the entire situation is highlighted by a piano and violin as the other instruments slowly come back in. The party's will combating the malice, but the malice here can't be suppressed. The instruments fade in and out until it's over. What else is there to even say? It takes and evolves upon the vibes of the other game's tunes and builds upon them while stylistically distinguishing itself for the new setting. The use of flutes throughout this OST, and again, the absolute crunch some of these songs have. Fuck. So goddamn great. Absolutely the best of the series. They even fixed the issue I had with Covenants in regards to the game just not diversifying enough of the tracks within the game itself. Every location gets its own distinct vibe and music. Every place feels unique and memorable in more ways than just visual. Every location blessed my ears with a new piece of music. If something was reused, it was for a specific purpose or reason. Every song fit every distinct environment and location. Again, this is not to say that Covenant OST was bad. It's very good, but I'm just genuinely happy that they did their best to vary more of the OST up again and used this number of tracks to their advantage. It all just hits so perfectly. Ending it all on Spread My Wings is absolutely fucking perfect. Wasn't that a good time, gang? Let's all wave goodbye to my favorite aspects of the game and get into things properly now. This is hands down the absolute worst story in the series. There is just absolutely no competition in the matter at all to me. Like, god damn, it's bad. I genuinely had more trouble putting this script together because of the complete wasted potential of this story and finding ways in which to structure all of this when this game really didn't give me all that much to work with. Like, the original Shadow Hearts' story is rough. It definitely has issues in pacing, in character development, in story beats, in thematic writing quality, but you know what? That game has moments that do hit at least. It has character interactions that I really loved and gave a shit about. From the New World has a fairly solid, I'm gonna be generous and say, first 15 hours. Once you hit that point though, it just kinda doesn't go through with anything it sets up. It lets so much of its setup down, so much that's being built to, interesting ideas, potential character moments that gently glimmer but ultimately just get buried under the absolute fucking nothing that is this story. But I'm sorry, I'm still just getting way ahead of myself on this one. I really think people weirdly oversell this game as being nothing but a goofy-ass comedy game tonally, when it's about as full-on into its comedy as Covenant was with some extra flourish of it on top. Covenant itself is goofy, but it balances that out with where its story goes and the tonal balance they manage to keep as it goes on. I do agree that the decrease of horror, probably due to the higher-ups wanting the game to appeal to younger demographics, definitely doesn't help it, but some of that core identity is still thankfully in there. I absolutely adore this sequence where one of the fishmen just eats Marlowe in the beginning.
Who's there?
Excuse me? I mean, how are you? I run a detective agency around here. Johnny Garland is what they call me.
Johnny Garland? Give me a break. What? My God, you're Johnny! Wait, stop right there! Don't come any closer!
What are you acting all scared about? It's not like I'm going to report you or anything. What's going on?
I wish there were more bits like that throughout the game that emphasized the fucked up horrors surrounding the party, but it is what it is. I can accept that lighter tone shift a lot more, especially since this is more a spin-off and side game anyway, and unfortunately, executive meddling do be executive meddling, so it makes sense why the team wouldn't want this to be the real Shadow Hearts 3. I expected doofy-ass, goofy bullshit with this game, because Shadow Hearts as a series, besides Koudelka, is filled with quite a bit of that. It's very goofy-ass anime bullshit with interesting alternate history stories about a multitude of shit, always with an undercurrent of horror, or sometimes an overcurrent, it depends on the game. This game, starting with a fairly clear anime OP, told me everything I needed to know from the goddamn jump about its tone and what it's going for. This secondary OP reminding me in ways of a mid-2000s anime show you'd catch around. Maybe you watched it on some streaming site online. Maybe you watched it on Toonami. You have memories of it, but maybe you can't recall the name. It's got energy and that spirit though. From the New World has the goofiness definitely more in the front, but it absolutely still tries to tug at some heartstrings and go into some territory darkly befitting of Shadow Hearts as a franchise. The problem is that the more serious bits aren't fleshed out enough to work, so all that's really majorly left is the comedy to keep things moving in ways. Even then, it doesn't when half of the game is kind of just running from dungeon to dungeon, hunting down the nothing villains as we then fail and have to then chase them to another dungeon over and over and over again. Like, this game's problem is not the comedy or humor being too much in my eyes. I think people tend to underestimate comedy and how it can be an effective device for stories in general, endearing you to characters, or even how straight through comedies can just be extremely well crafted and put together and tell an interesting story that comments on shit in really interesting ways. For a few examples, Popstar Never Stop Stopping and the way it comments on narcissistic pop idol music documentaries.
And I really hope that Tony is watching and that they feel like shit.
Bruno and its use of provocation to make fun of bullshit middle-of-the-road liberalism in regards to the acceptance of queer people and exposing the bigotry of Americans against queer people at large.
Sir, Officer Cadet, you deserve a medal for exceptional skin. What are you talking? What are you trying to say, candidate?
Comedies deserve more love and to be taken more seriously in what they are trying to do, comment on, and say, and I respect this game going lighter even though it wasn't fully what the team wanted, but they tried to make it work. Shadow Hearts as a series is really a dramedy in a lot of ways, and Covenant is a very effective one at that, so it's not like a lighter tone and atmosphere would be totally off base for where the series could possibly go. If this game was even just trying to be a goofy-ass comedy game alone without striving for much else, I wouldn't even really mind that, given that, again, this is more a spin-off game anyway. I'd just go along for the ride and vibe, but From the New World wants you to treat it like a dramedy, like the previous two games in the series. It wants you to take certain things quite serious. It wants you to care and connect with these characters and give a shit about what's going on. The problem is that the game just doesn't have anywhere near enough meat on the drama side to dig into, so all you have left is the comedy while it's flailing around trying to be more than that. While I liked and dug the comedy for the most part,
Here it is, the door boy previously mentioned, huh? Okay, folks, I strongly suggest you all stand back. There! Behold, ninjutsu's out of unlock. So, that is over. Shall we go?
You know, for a second I thought it was gonna be cool. Shows you how lame I am.
it didn't feel like it hit as strong for me as always, because I just couldn't get attached to this cast and these characters, and in my opinion, I think that's extremely important in comedy. When I watch, say, Swing Girls, yeah, I'm watching these delinquent-ass students fuck up and poison people's meals and shit by accident, but I'm also understanding them bit by bit as people, even if I don't relate to their exact circumstances or all of them fully. There's goofy-ass moments of humanity I can see within them that makes their goofy-ass interactions and attempts to get their band going really endearing and funny. When I watch Spree, the main dude is a psychotic weirdo piece of shit, but you can see this lust and hunger for attention that I think a good number of people online trying to attain success can end up having lying underneath the surface. The need to be validated that backs up the dark humor throughout the awful horrible shit that he does. You're a viewer of his stream too as you watch, and that in itself is part of what it's saying about the Ouroboros of unhealthy online content creation. It's all a part of the joke and humor of the film. If you can't connect or even understand why you're laughing with or at a character within a comedy, then it's gonna have a rough time going about it, I think. It's gonna be difficult for an audience to even really truly connect with what it's going for. From the New World, unfortunately, has this problem in many ways. To be extremely clear as well, I don't want to be all that hard on the writers and team for how this story turned out. By March of 2005, the year this game was released, the game was only 60% done. The game was then released in July of 2005. This game is blatantly unfinished and had such little dev time after the release of Covenant because Aruz wanted more profit and made the team push this game out the door. For what it's worth, the amount of content alone makes this a fucking feat that I'm surprised they were able to get a game out that feels, looks, and works this great. But my god, you can absolutely feel the effects the stranglehold the higher-ups had on this game had on it. This party fucking sucks. It's such a shame too, because some of them are really interesting when you first meet them. Shania herself is going to get her own section because I have quite a number of thoughts on Shania, but let's get to everybody else first. So first up is Nathan. Nathan should have been an interesting character. He goes along with Shania on her journey to get revenge, making sure that she is okay and keeping her safe. I don't think it's weird to say that the devs were very clearly inspired by what Square did with Kimari and the role he filled for Yuna within Final Fantasy X's story. They're both a very stereotypical, stoic native character guiding one of our main protagonists across their journey. In Final Fantasy X, it's Yuna and her pilgrimage to stop Sin while collecting Aeons along the way. Here it's Shania and her journey to kill Lady and gain the powers of the fusions along the way. Both of their journeys are seen as sacrifices that must be taken for the greater good of the people in Yuna's case, and for revenge in Shania's case. And while there are obviously a number of plot differences already that differentiate them, they are definitely different characters that do try to go for much different things in the end, don't get me wrong. The biggest issue is that Kimahri has any character development at all when compared to Natan. We can absolutely talk about how Kimahri falls into the same stoic native trope usage that unfortunately plagues stories like it, and how that's also pretty shitty for the devs of that game to do. But at least Kimahri has development at all. He has a story to tell with him. Kimahri is fleshed out and grows as a character. You don't get a Kimahri bar fight type moment with Natan.
Leave Kimahri, Yankee. Kimahri is small, Ranso. Kimahri's so small, can't see Yankee and Biran's faces.
Kimahri forget Ranso friends? We taught you much at time of Hornmold. Biran taught Kimahri to be strong, Ranso.
Maybe taught too much.
Take him on.
Oh! Bring it outside. The tournament's starting, you hear?
With Kimahri, you learn about his insecurities and see him over the course of the game grow to be more open with everyone and slowly become stronger emotionally. You don't get a snowmobile type heart-to-heart with Natan. You don't get a Mount Gagazet honor duel type bit with Natan. Natan gets fucking nothing from this game and this story. It is fucking nuts how little they give him outside of being a Shania exposition dumper, a stoic guy, and the fact that he's a hunter. He, at best, gets one scene if you go and get his weapon that gives you anything about him and his backstory, about how his mother died because he wasn't strong enough to protect her and was afraid to shoot a rampaging bear that stumbled into the village. That is fucking anything, and it comes at basically the tail end of all of his shit. Nothing is done with him. I fucks with an Integra and Sashomaru, you know? I can fucks with stoic type characters if they're written well and given anything at all, and more importantly, not stereotypes. Natan doesn't get shit though. He barely gets interactions with anybody in the game. There were genuine points where I legit forgot he was in the game because he hadn't said or done anything in fucking hours. It's nuts how little they give him, even if you go out of your way to do more shit involving him directly. Hilda is closer to Keith level than Joachim as far as the Valentine family goes.
Well, you see, we had some business at the base and snuck in. How about you? How'd you get locked up in here?
You snuck in? So you're not one of the base people? Oh, please, you've got to help us! We've been locked in here for a week without any food, and I'm so worried about poor Roger. He's getting so weak, and there's nothing I can do about it.
I'd be happy to help if I could. But I don't think I can break you out of something like this.
Oh, well, if that's the case, then hold on. Here. So now, won't you please help me?
You just got out on your own.
But I would say she's at least more interesting than Keith, even if her one joke is, when she's fat, people think she's a wholesome woo bean, and when she's skinny, people really want her to step on them.
I'm sorry. I'm just a little hungry.
I don't think this is the best time for that.
Oh, I can't wait. Johnny, I'm sorry.
Huh? She bit me! She sucked my blood!
And it tasted pretty good if I say so myself. Now then, you've all been so kind. It's time to return the favor!
Was surprisingly not as weirdly shitty towards fat people than I honestly expected though, given again that everyone finds her wholesome and cute when she's big, which at least surprised me. But it's also supposed to be a joke, so I don't fucking know. Either way, there's not much outside of that. Plus, they just reused the Man Festival again for her side quest. Here, it's at least way shorter and not racist or shitty to queer people, so that's nice, I guess. Joachim comes back for it too, which is fun. Otherwise, Hilda really doesn't get anything either after she comes back. What's that? No, we are not getting a queer rep section this time. It's just
Gerard
and his new boyfriend this time, and they're basically just the same idea as last time. More like a stereotypical sidestep with no other characters to do anything with. Joachim is back for like a minute. Mao is pretty boring too, which is a shame because Mao could have legit been really interesting if they did anything with her.
When they said it was a student, I was curious. But it's just you.
You're a cat!
What are you gawking at? What's so unusual about a talking cat these days, anyway?
Like, they introduce an entire species of cat people who no one sees as cat people. They have a currency and they run Hollywood at Paramount Pictures and shit. It's a solid joke. I laughed at it a few times, but god damn it. Outside of being a package deal of sorts to Frank, who's a gag character, she's also basically a gag character whose entire side quest is tedious grinding for cat coins so you can film cat movies directed by director Meowkus that are just the most obvious parodies in the world. And I'ma be real with you, I didn't finish her fucking side quest. I didn't want to grind for the coins. There were probably quicker ways to do it, but after seeing what it was, I just didn't want to bother. It's a gag, but it's a gag that makes you grind for them coins throughout the game to do it, and I just couldn't be fucked to bother by the point I realized that. Looking it up, I really didn't miss much either. Like, yeah, I get it. I get the
Game of Death
and Drunken Master jokes. I get the Samo Meow jokes. You know me. You, hopefully, if you smash that subscribe button, know this channel. You know I love me some cinema, but my god, I'm not fucking grinding for those goddamn coins just to see an I'll be back or Pat Morita as a cat. I can't. I'm sorry. I looked into it and it really doesn't tell you much about Mao at all outside of her having acting prowess. I want to know how she came to work for Al Capone, more about her ninja past outside of the very little she gives in Frank's side quest. I want to know more about her crime syndicate days. There's so much there, but she's a gag character. Frank is Joachim again, but he's a ninja, and this time he's not gay.
No problem. Frank simply hid using the art of hiding. That way, the creatures didn't even notice Frank.
Oh yeah, right.
I think the sword hilt joke is a funny addition to the same finding weapons around the environment gag that Joachim had at least, and he gets one or two small bits, but overall, this very much feels like a we have Joachim at home kind of situation, where instead of wrestling and a wrestling federation he's a part of, it's instead ninjas in a ninja village in Brazil with 2 E's. Thankfully, because I like Joachim a lot, I still like the joke a lot, but I'm not gonna lie and say that I didn't want them to kind of try something else, or go for a different bit, especially when Hilda is already in the party as the Valentine representative, and Joachim is also in the game for a brief period of time anyway, so the joke feels a bit redundant. Like, I get it's because they can reuse systems and animations, which is fair given the circumstances this game was created under. In respect to that, it's pretty good how much they end up doing to try to distinguish Frank, but I wish the team was able to do more. Ricardo. Oh, Ricardo. Oh, you want to talk about movies. You want to talk about cinema. It's time to talk about a little film called Desperado. You see, Desperado is a really famous action film, part of the Mariachi trilogy from Robert Rodriguez. That shit put his name on the map, right next to shit like El Mariachi and From Dusk Till Dawn. Quick aside, I think more people should really watch his made-for-TV film RoadRacers because it's really fucking good. It's like one of his best films with the way it talks about toxic masculinity in small towns, ruining the youth and leading them to hurting the people around them, and the casual misogyny planted deep within the bitter people completely stuck in this small town town they couldn't escape. The way hurt is perpetuated throughout them through the traumas and experiences of the older people also stuck in that town, causing constant unending cycles where nobody stuck there really wants better for anyone else, is represented perfectly throughout it as well. It's really goddamn good, and holy fucking shit, that ending goes pretty hard. Sorry, I got sidetracked. I'm kind of the Robert Rodriguez watcher. I'll watch basically anything he makes, even though I think his career kind of fell off after Planet Terror. So Desperado was pretty goddamn popular, but you want to know somewhere it was especially popular? Japan. Bebop referenced it, Trigun and really Night Owl's work in general has callbacks to it, Fooly Cooly has a callback to it, this game has Ricardo. Now while Ricardo isn't exactly one-to-one with the Mariachi films as there are differences in their characters, they also still have a ton of similarities within their general plots and what happens to them. Edna and the love interest that dies within the film at the hands of a jealous gang boss who wants her all to himself is pretty much exactly the same. Only difference is the girl in El Mariachi does in fact not get rezzed and go on a rampage that the Mariachi has to help stop. Now I think with the way this is built up, I think this could have been fine. Built up interestingly to find more about Ricardo and use a similar starting point to Springboard as those films to get into more with his character. And the game tries a bit. The quest to get his muses is actually decently alright. Ricardo trying to find the beauty in the world and connections like his own to Edna that he can turn into inspiration for more music. I think that's a cool idea and very El Mariachi-like. His serenadas hit so wonderfully in battle, giving him a fairly nice bit of character through small bits of music used to support the party in ways. He even is one of the few characters to get like an arc with a resolution of sorts, even if it's still not that much. In his final major side quest to get his final muse item, you do the dollhouse side quest and get to talk to Edna after a Clyde and not Bonnie for some reason fake out. They have a moment and he plays her a final song before she leaves, and I thought while I wished there was more to it overall, the whole ordeal was at least sweet and in this story was like an oasis in a fucking desert of shallow character development. But I just wish there was still more. Outside of that, he doesn't do much and is basically just an El Mariachi character because the devs thought it was cool. And to be fair, it is cool. But I just wish there was more to it. Like they could have taken that base and just did far more with it. But it is what it is, I guess. Oh, and he's played by Goku in English.
Edna, perhaps you should retire as well.
I guess so.
You're worried about your brother, no? It is in your eyes.
I'm sorry.
No need to apologize. But when he comes back, perhaps there will be more time for us,
You know, I hope he's all right. You see, my brother really wants me to start dating an honest and trustworthy man. When he finds out that you and I are seeing each other...
I am happy to take that risk, my darling.
Last is Johnny Garland.
Welcome to Garland's Detective Agency. I'm the boss, Johnny Garland.
I really wish I liked Johnny. He's not even really a terrible character. He at least gets more than most other characters within this game. But honestly, this might be a hot take. I don't think Johnny should have been the main character of this story. He's just really not that interesting. I think he starts fairly interesting, and as an audience insert and surrogate character, I think he's fine introducing everybody to all the shit within this world as he too is learning about it, kind of like Titus in FF10. Here, he's the kid detective stumbling into a fucked up mystical world he had no clue about and feels bound to try to help stop from getting worse and hurting people. Using his curious connection with Malice for good, I dig all of that, but the game doesn't give him enough. As the game goes on, the story becomes clearly more about Shania, but instead of giving her that spotlight or even just giving us better insight into her thoughts or events that happen or anything along with Johnny, we are trapped solely within Johnny's perspective. We are trapped knowing little about the goings-on of Shania's thoughts and feelings, which I'll get more into. After a while, Johnny feels like a side character who was made the main character for no real good reason outside of marketing, I guess. He has important ties to the plot, which is fair, but a lot else about him, his fairly bland, stereotypical dumb boy memory lost anime protagonist type personality, doesn't ever truly feel fleshed out in a meaningful way that really hits. He feels like the character tagging along within the main character's story. You get some development when the revelations with Lady come about, and the fact that Lady is Grace Garland, his sister whom he presumed died in a car crash with his dad years ago that he had hazy memories about. You learn a tiny bit about his dad, his rich-ass home life, the fact that he can channel malice because he was the only successful emigre resurrection because Nikolai's actions in Covenant just left so much extra malice in the world to make it possible, and cause his sister sacrificed her own life to make sure he could come back.
Johnny. Did you die? No, you can't.
But I don't feel like there's much meaningful reflection about the fact that he has to kill his sister again, when it's not really his sister anymore at all, because her soul never came back to her body. The new entity named Lady is just that, her own entity, but we'll get there in a bit. Like, I wanted to care about this for Johnny. I wanted more of his internal struggle with this. I wanted to see him kind of toss and turn on it, but the game doesn't fully commit to doing that. I feel like they try to do shit with Johnny, but none of it sticks. None of it feels meaningful or hits right because they don't sell this idea of Johnny being this main important character because of his ties to the villain all that well. They don't even have much payoff with his sudden malice transformation abilities that lay dormant until his life is ended by Killer.
Jerk. That's what you get for not killing me before when you still had the chance.
Johnny. Malice. From Johnny?
Lady? No! What the hell is this? Damn you.
Johnny? Is that you?
Get a hold of yourself, you damn fool!
Boy, what has gotten into you?
Looks like words aren't going to work.
Then it must be time for a spank!
Johnny, don't do it! Could you be the same as that woman now?
Everything with Johnny feels bizarrely rushed and undercooked. Maybe if it wasn't, maybe I'd feel much more about him. Maybe he'd have more going on or justification as a main character within this wandering standstill plot. But as is, that just doesn't really happen. It's a shame because he reminds me a lot of Leo from Blood Blockade Battlefront and his goofy and similar vibes. The difference is, Leo is a fleshed out character with guilt over the blinding of his sister that's explored in interesting detail. You see him exist in the day-to-day. You see his connections well to the people around him. You see his struggles with the same old bullshit from characters like Zap, or the many other wild situations he stumbles into in a world he doesn't fully get, all due to his powers. It's great shit. I wouldn't at all be shocked if aspects of Blood Blockade were inspired by ideas from this game, to be honest, but I could be totally off base with that. But Johnny himself just feels like he's missing that oomph that a character like Leo has. He's missing the interesting drive of a main protagonist, even an audience surrogate type character like Leo himself is. None of his victories feel all that earned, his struggles feel so late within the story that I just didn't really care because the game didn't really drive me to care. I wish I dug Johnny Garland. He has moments. He has great bits with some characters. I love his interactions with Lenny, and especially the Tinkerbell cases he gives you. He starts fairly goofy and endearing within the whole kid detective trope, but in the end, I just wish he wasn't the primary protagonist at bare minimum because he's just not all that interesting as things go on and the real plot happens. Johnny feels like if you were to make Edward the main character of Koudelka, it just doesn't work as strongly given the story being told, and it really drags down the seeming point of the entire narrative. Whether teen demographics, potential Western appeal or something, I'm not quite sure, but unfortunately it leaves us here with a fairly boring character that I wish was anything more, or at least just not the main protagonist of the story. Shania should have been the main protagonist. Like, straight the fuck out. You want to keep Johnny due to the lady connection, fine, but this is just straight up Shania's story. Johnny is brought into it after stumbling into it, but this is explicitly a story about Lady massacring Shania's entire tribe and the revenge that she seeks.
Our tribe was destroyed by that woman.
Nathan!
It happened 3 years ago. She came to our village and began to kill our brothers without mercy. I do not know her reasons. Perhaps it was simply because our village lay in her path. In the space of 1 hour, the village was filled with red light, beasts, and the bodies of our brothers. Obeying the chief's wishes, I took the princess and fled. And so I was unable to help my friends. And so, we were the only 2 survivors.
Like, not only is that shit just like completely loaded with ideas of revenge, what it means to seek that revenge, if it's even worth it after all of the pain and suffering having been through it firsthand, but it's also specifically about cruel genocide by a white person towards Native American characters for the specific purpose of causing pain to perpetuate a cycle of pain and malice going forward in order to meet her goals. But instead of focusing on Shania, her feelings, her mindset, what she wants, they seat the player completely outside within Johnny's perspective, and due to this game's story and the way it completely falls apart after Vegas, it doesn't fucking do anything with it, which is infuriating to me. Shania is a character with an absolute fuckload of potential to do something there with all of that. She is straight up the only character in this game that I could squeeze out a core theme and idea with. Some kind of interesting commentary that could have been fleshed out about the horrific violence doled out to POC, in this case specifically Native Americans, by cruel and uncaring white people. But it just doesn't. And listen, right? I wasn't expecting this to be some deep racial exploration of like power dynamics. Again, I know what the fuck I generally signed up for. for. But when I found out this is why Shania wants to kill Lady, I was genuinely pissed because of how much the game was doing fucking nothing with it at all. Shania is single-minded about the entire thing with no real room to even see what's rolling around in her head about it. Half the fucking game is spent going from dungeon to dungeon, having Shania go, I'm gonna kill Lady, before going to another dungeon where she again says, I'm gonna kill Lady, before they escape, and yet again we gotta go to another dungeon, and you get what I'm saying here. There is an idea here, there is something here, but the game decides to waste its time on a bunch of bullshit for such a long time. Even going for the good ending and doing her side quest where you get her final fusion and see her destroyed village and how clearly hurt she is by the memories of it all, only for the end to be more about Johnny wanting to protect her at all costs, since she's been Kiss of Malice and her dad asks him to, and I was just so fucking done.
Young man, it is forbidden for me to aid you directly. But please, watch over her.
I promise.
Very well. I shall summon forth the spirit. Spirit of the sun, Tirawa. I bid you to come forth at once.
I'll protect both of them. I'll protect her and the world.
Revenge stories are interesting. Straight up, some of my favorite stories are revenge stories in some way. Lady Vengeance, Mystic River, Lady Snowblood, Kill Bill, Oldboy. They all use revenge to tell multifaceted human stories about the pain of the want for revenge, exploring what it truly means to get that revenge, and if it's truly worth it to you. That's what makes the revenge portrayed in a film like Oldboy so powerful, honestly. A story about how revenge will inevitably put you in the same league as the monster that you're chasing, uncaring of what it takes, who it hurts, or the consequences it causes to get there, along with how truly empty the after of revenge is, after you've gone and built your entire life and being around it. This game could have used revenge as a theme to talk specifically about racial violence, or even just explore Shania's mentality and singular pained focus after the horrific tragedy she suffered after losing everyone around her. But instead, Johnny takes up all of the time as the MC, not really adding much to a lot of it. Shania, at best, gets a lot of lines about how she's gonna kill Lady no matter what, and not much else besides how focused on her goal she is. Like, yeah, that's the point, and they try to broach how reckless she's being just charging into situations.
More importantly, tell us where Vilcabamba is, if you don't mind.
If I tell you, what will you do?
I'll kill that woman.
No. Why do you think I asked all of you to come here in the first place?
But it's giving me not much else here to work with in regards to it here. It's handled like total shit, and I fucking hate it. It adds to the feeling that there's chunks here that are absolutely missing from the entire thing. And to be fair, this is another consequence of the higher-ups pushing the deadline up way ahead of when they even wanted to release the game. It could have been a case of them wanting to do more with Shania overall, but just not getting the space to do so for a multitude of company and financial reasons and issues. Who knows? That doesn't mean this still doesn't piss me the fuck off though. It just really sucks. And in the end, the game suffers greatly because of it. Oh, and she's also constantly sexualized in a way that Yuri wasn't during her fusion.
My name is Shania, and this is...
I am Nathan. It is my honor.
Hi.
So both within the story and within gameplay, her fusion transformation, instead of being related to the character's mental states, like in the first two Shadow Hearts games, here Shania just progressively, majestically strips her clothes until she is transformed. The camera doing exactly what you expect it to when it happens. Now on the upside, in gameplay you can actually make the game just completely skip this, which is great. Still, a problem within the story and in general though. If this had happened to Yuri too, I wouldn't have minded as much, because then we could be saying equal opportunity fan service or something, but as is, it just feels like another shit cherry upon this trashy sundae. It all majorly plays into exoticism tropes about Native American women, and it's just not great. So like, fan service and horny character designs are one of those things to me where I tend to not really care too much, but I completely get why either someone would be bothered by it, and why generally it's a problem, especially when it happens to characters that are basically only there to exist for the designers, writers, animators, audience, or whoever. Personally, I think fan service characters can be empowering and disempowering depending on the context of the character and what they're doing with said sexualization. To me, it's not sexualization itself that's inherently bad. To me, it's when sexualization of a character is more important to the writers or devs or whoever than the actual character being sexualized. So like, for example, we got Bayonetta, who yes, is sexualized, but in my opinion, her openness and use of her sexuality as a weapon is mad empowering and just rad as fuck. It's one facet of her character and personality, but it's not all that she gets to be and do. Everyone may not see it that way, and that's totally fine. I don't think fan service and sexualization are things that everybody will see eye to eye on, but I personally do dig more open, honest, and brazen portrayals of sexuality like this within media. For every Bayonetta though, you get, say, characters in the biggest air quotes in the world, like the B&Bs from Metal Gear Solid 4, who are literally only there to titillate. They don't have personalities besides having lost their minds and tragic backstories. They only exist to be ogled and sexualized in an extremely gross, voyeuristic way by the player before you slaughter them and then are told how they had to eat cement in the back of an Arby's parking lot when they were 6 years old by a magical black man. In between all that is where I think things may get a little more complicated. The main reason all depends on your own perspective on sexuality and sexualization of characters, the reasons in which it is being done, how they as a character are treated, if that sexualization goes against the entire point of said character or not. But then you have the sexualization of minority groups by people not of that minority group. Many women minority characters, but especially Native American women, tend to be portrayed within media as sexual objects. The curious other, the forbidden love, all that kind of dehumanizing ass shit. Now this is not to say that Japanese people are not also people of color, like of course they fucking are, but the point I'm making is Japanese people aren't Native American, and writing and creating a Native American character that is over-sexualized to shit with the camera constantly ogling her upon every single transformation is not great. Shit like this really brings into clarity how fucking important having at bare minimum consultants or people you can go to on projects like this to make sure you're not fucking your portrayals of stuff like this up. Like, I don't think the devs went into this with shitty intentions or anything, given the subject matter they try to tackle within this game and the rest of the series and the general empathy towards pretty much every native character within this game. But that doesn't mean that you still can't stumble into bad shit like this being done. Intentions are half of the battle. Execution is what matters far more within situations like this. Like, to be very clear despite this, I very much do quite adore Shania when she gets to do anything besides her one-note revenge deal. It's just lame when they play into these clear sexualizing of the other tropes that media tends to play into when it comes to people of color, that it becomes a bit of a tightrope walk, and here I just feel like it just comes off as fairly tasteless and bad. So we know how the other games are with their antagonists, but let's go over them again anyway. Patrick is a shitty dude doing the horrible things that he does out of the intense pain of the loss he suffered. You can get why he did it, but dude is a monster for choosing to do what he did instead of learning to cope with the loss. You never meet him, but his presence is felt around the monastery. Ogden and Bessie, also more physically present, are perpetrators of the same horrific shit. Tragic antagonists doing horrible shit at that point because they're trapped within the horrific cycle they've created for themselves along with Patrick. Dohwai is a pretty bad antagonist, but they do sort of try to set him up. He just falls into way too many generic villain-ass tropes to work. Albert Simon is a goofy-ass wizard who loves poor people. They tried, but also didn't fully succeed in selling the believability of that internal struggle as it comes too late in the original game. But I could still tell you things he did, and his personality, and he's a tad generic, but likable as an antagonist. Kato, Ishimura, Rasputin, Nikolai, all villains reaching out trying to ease their fears and pains, wanting to strive towards power they feel they deserve to wield for their own petty ambitions, losses, or desires. Kato especially is the most empathetic one given the losses he has suffered throughout the first and second games, refusing to learn and truly move forward. You know what I can at least tell you about the antagonists from the entire series? I can tell you goddamn anything about them. Their ideals, their ambitions, their desires, goofy anime bullshit or not, I can tell you their personality. They all have fairly memorable presence in one way or another. Again, you don't actually ever meet Patrick, but his presence and the consequences of what he's done are constantly felt, and that's excellent. What can I say about the antagonists from this game? Nothing. Killer is barely a character, to the point that bro doesn't even have a goddamn name. Lady gets Grace's backstory, but she is a separate entity entirely. She runs around killing motherfuckers and kiss-of-malicing people for the sake of it, being her prime directive basically. I couldn't tell you shit about them. They barely get moments together. They don't get any bonding moments like in Covenant outside of one short scene at the very beginning of the game. Ironically, my favorite scene involving them, and one of my favorites within the entire game itself.
What did you do? I'm talking about to me. I'll bet you're starving. Here. People call me Killer. And you? Huh. Lady. That's what I'll call you.
They just sit together as Killer tries to get who this woman is and why she saved him from the cops while they eat bread together. Otherwise, they wander aimlessly until after Vegas, where they then go from dungeon to dungeon and then standing around a gate for half the fucking game, waiting for you to progress the plot forward after collecting the 2 Dragon Balls or whatever the fuck. They don't get shit. They don't get any goddamn time to develop. You never learn anything about Killer. I think they're supposed to be a parallel to Yuri and Alice, a kind of cruel look into a potential future that could have been, maybe. Even then, I think that's a poor stretch that doesn't fit because we don't fucking learn goddamn anything about Killer or his motivations, wants, or desires outside of the fact that his name is Killer and he loves killing people. When Killer died and Family Guy death posed, I laughed, and when Lady was sad about it and they tried to do a whole thing with it, I just didn't care, because what the fuck am I supposed to feel for them? I don't know who they are. You don't learn shit about them or their relationship. Killer says some shit like, "Lady, you're the first person who ever protected me."
You saved me, you know. It's the first time anyone ever did that for me. That's why I'm not trying to thank you. But I'll protect you. As long as I can. Till I die.
And like, What does that mean? Explain, motherfucker! We could talk about Gilbert, but what is there to say? Penguin-looking motherfucker. No clue why Killer doesn't murk his ass when he finds out he's lying to him and has no reason to keep him around. Kind of a terrible killer, if I'm being honest. They try to hint at Gilbert having a deal, doing research on monsters, having deep interest in the gate, and wanting to do something with it. He just wants to be a Cronenberg monster, and wants other people to be Cronenberg monsters. Like, I'm not kidding, that's literally all he gets.
Well, I'll be. You got here rather quickly. So what do you think? It's rather comforting, isn't it, though? This world and all of its cozy evil.
I don't think so. I'm out of here soon as I can.
Shame. You just don't get it. The majesty. The awesome power that flows throughout this world. This is my kind of place.
Get out of my way. We're not after you anymore.
Think of it. What will happen when all of this power flows out into the world? You won't have to wait long to find out, will you? The power is for everyone. The weak, as well as those who are strong. All are able to bask freely in this power. Just like this. Soon, everyone in the world will become like this. Just imagine how it will be then. The sheer beauty of it all.
Oh my God!
This guy is so gross.
Please, people, allow me to bring all of you inside. Join me in this glorious quest. And together, we can experience the wonders of this miraculous new world!
This feels like he was maybe supposed to have a bigger role with all he knows. It feels like maybe we were supposed to learn something more personal about him. But once you go beyond the gate, he just turns into a Cronenberg monster and is just like, I want to be a Lovecraftian beast. It was so fucking nothing. So built up to this goofy ass conclusion that, you know what, I did laugh at. I was so fucking done by this point. That was the point where I knew we weren't getting payoff for shit. The point where I knew that looking to this game for character work like the other games is just fucking pointless. Haha, he's a goofy monster man. It's a bummer after how even just baseline interesting the antagonists in this series could be, even with their flaws in the original game, and here there's just fucking nothing. Like, listen, alright? I'm not trying to say that I needed this to be some deep exploration of these characters. I'm not saying that this needed to even get close to Covenant's level, but this clearly wanted to be more than a wacky comedy game. It wanted to endear you to these characters, but instead it doesn't give you anything to even basically latch onto. The villains are the best example of the failure of this game and its writing because they don't fucking do or really get anything. Again, they spend half of their screen time standing around twiddling their thumbs while they wait for you. It's lame when they could have used that time to even just flesh them out. It drives me fucking crazy. I tend to talk about the endings in these games since I find their commitments to their bad endings and the interesting ways in which Covenant especially canonized each ending in different ways. This time, the game harkens back to having to do more like in the first game instead of just being a certain choice before the end. In order to get the bad end, just play the game through like normal and it's the default ending you get. In this ending, you kill Lady, she and Killer ascend to the afterlife, and then Johnny and the gang escape after Shania says how she doesn't really know what to do with herself after finally getting her revenge, which would hit it all if I fucking cared.
I'm sorry. I was thinking about what I should do now. Revenge. has been my only reason for living. So I was thinking maybe I should just stay here.
Don't say that. You'll have time to think about that outside. Come on. Let's go.
They all leave and they roll down everybody's post-game shenanigans, which is always fun to hear about.
So, Nathan went back to his Grand Canyon village. These days he lives as a warrior, protecting all of his brothers in the tribe. He said he did his duty and asked me to take care of the rest. Frank, he's with his ninja comrades, still fighting to protect peace and freedom. He's actually become kind of famous and appears on TV from time to time. Maybe I'm being off base here, but aren't ninjas supposed to be kind of invisible? Master Meow, she's become a huge Hollywood star, a dramatic actor who can do action-adventure too. At least that's what the buzz is. Nobody seems to notice she's a cat. Hilda, she returned home loaded down with an armful of souvenirs.
I don't know when I'll wake up again. It may be 100 years or so, but if you're still alive, I'll visit.
Says her. Ricardo disappeared after placing flowers on Edna's grave. He didn't say a word to anybody. Maybe later, when I'm a little older, I'll wander into a bar and find him singing. It'll make me real happy.
Johnny and Lenny are doing the same old shit, but Johnny is really clearly annoyed at still just saving cats from trees, though he's also just more peeved than he normally would be.
Master, we got a call from a guy named Baker in the 3rd borough. It seems they're missing their sweet little kitty cat, and they want us to run over there and find it.
Man, again? I told you not to take those kind of jobs.
I know. You don't have to remind me. I'll go with you if you want me to.
I'll be fine. And don't treat me like a child. Later.
Master! Please, be careful.
The scene cuts to a similar shot from the opening of the game, the one of Shania on the Empire State Building. Well, she's back up there, and the kiss of malice has overtaken her. She's gone and is quite possibly now in a lady-esque state, I think? Either way, it's not good. Not much to say about this ending. If they fleshed out the revenge part of it, it could have been an effective message about how revenge can be all-consuming, like a film like Oldboy or Mystic River went for. It could be trying to hint at the theme of cyclical forms of vengeance, or the inevitable violent loop that revenge causes, like in Sympathy for Mr. Vengeance. But the writing isn't strong enough or fleshed out enough to carry that at all, so it just falls fairly flat and makes me wonder why I should give a shit at all. To get the good ending, you have to get all of Shania's fusion statues and level all of them up and do her side quest involving going to Garvoy Valley and getting her final fusion form. So if you haven't been getting enough soul energy throughout the game, then have fun grinding and hope you picked up the item that increases soul energy drops by 20% if you don't have enough. Like, I think this is about on the level of the kind of tedious shit you had to do to get the good ending in the first game too, so I'm not gonna act like this is even really that bad in comparison. Like, as long as you have been exploring around and not running from a shitload of fights, then in my opinion, you should be good. It's it's really not that bad. And if you need to get that accessory to add 20% to soul charge drops in fights, once you beat Vilcabamba, go back to where you fought the boss there and it's just on the ground. It really helps a lot. Anyway, so you do the quest, you get the fusion, Shania loses her tattoos. The same situations play out after Johnny yet again vows to help her. This time, Shania is there with Johnny as she beat the malice within herself, and they're working together at his detective agency, which I'll admit is a cute ending.
Master! We got a call from a guy named Baker in the 3rd borough. It seems they're missing their sweet little kitty cat, and they want us to run over there and find it.
Man, again? I told you not to take those kind of jobs.
I know. You don't have to remind me. I'll go with you if you want me to.
Will you stop being so selfish?
Huh?
I'll be going with you. Can?
That settles that. Take care of things while I'm out.
Easy for you to say.
Honestly wish we got a sequel or a continuation that was just them continuing to solve mysteries together or something, cause shit like that is cozy to me, it's nice. Not much else to say about it though. This tries to kind of address the revenge angle through Shania meeting her dad again, at least, which is something, I guess.
But wait! If I gain the power of the Sun Spirit, does that mean that I can avenge everyone?
Even now, you can only think of vengeance? Perhaps it is the red light embedded in your body that makes you so venomous, vengeful, bitter, and angry. No, the spirits are still here. They are merely concealed by the sun's power. Show your strength, and the spirits will answer, as they did before. And if you discover that will, the Sun Spirit will enter your soul, and any ill will corrupting you will vanish.
But I feel like yet again it's so undercooked that while I found this ending overall cute, I still found it strangely hollow and lacking even the slight impact of either of the original games' endings, because I just have such a heavy disconnect with these characters. Honestly, I'm not quite sure what else to say, and I guess that's kind of the problem with this whole shebang, right? It doesn't hit. There's no punch to it. It sets up some solid shit and then doesn't really do anything with it, and that brings this game down super hard for me. If a game is gonna ask me to invest like between 30 to 50 hours, I'm hoping that I'm at least gonna get something that invests me, whether that be within its world, its characters, its story and themes. A mix of those things is ideal. This game doesn't really manage any of them outside of what the last games established that it uses here and there. Even then, not to enough of an effect at all to work, and the endings are all a perfect encapsulation of the ultimate effect of all of it. And like, listen, you may love or adore this game. You may not care about the story and just really fuck with the gameplay, and that could be enough for you personally. If that's you, I envy you. I wish I could just love this game for its mechanics alone, because they are seriously stellar. There are many a game that I tend to love only on a real mechanical level, like Fear, for example. Fear is a fantastic shooter, but I think the story is whatever. The difference there to me is that Fear is a shooter that doesn't ask like 30 to 50 hours of investment from me. While I think it cares about its story, I don't mind it as much there, because the core gameplay loop is far more are the focus of what the game is doing. When I dig into a huge RPG like this, I want to connect with what it's doing, and this just left me extremely cold when it clearly was aspiring not to. Given the fact that the dev time was a year, I wouldn't be shocked if, while obviously reusing assets and improving what they could, they still had to rush this out within a fairly small time frame due to higher-ups needing to get something out there, which is mainly why I don't want to be cold to the dev team about this. Like, I really think it's clear they were trying to do something here, but they just didn't have enough time to see the whole vision through. Looking at the original beta video of this game, provided by the wonderful people over at the Shadow Hearts Wikia, I don't want to presume too much, but it looks like this was probably going to span more locations potentially, and that just didn't happen. But I could be wrong. This game feels unfinished and cut short in its ambitions to try to appeal to a completely different market compared to the rest of the series, and that kneecaps the shit out of anything it can even really approach doing, to the point that I'm just left disappointed and dejected. It's freezing cold out here. I'm just massively bummed. To end this video on a bit of a positive note, I want to do two things if I can. First thing is, I want to talk about Pennyblood some more. As of the uploading of this video, there's still not a shitload to go off of story-wise, but we can at least look at the gameplay mock-up and see what ideas they want to carry over. I'm extremely fucking excited that this game is going for the same combo system, is implementing the stock system, and is hopefully going for something as similarly customizable to the magic system found within From the New World, but we shall see as we learn more about the game. The devs actually did an AMA while the Kickstarter was still going. I wish I had had the funds at the time to donate, but instead I'm going to pre-order whatever the deluxe edition is because I really want to support the devs on both of these projects if possible. They're apparently shooting for a spring 2025 release date. I could see it being pushed back, but you know, we'll see. They want to tackle far more grotesque and fucked up things now that they're independent, given that they're now not being restricted by their publishers anymore, which is sick as fuck. Anything to get that real horror vibe of the first game back again genuinely makes me really happy to hear. It's nice to see games and creatives be unrestricted by what they used to be restricted by to hopefully do something new and better with it, or even take it to places the original games just couldn't go. We need more horror JRPGs as much as we also need more Western themed ones. One of the party members is also going to be queer. I'm so pumped to see how they do with this, and hopefully they do that justice, but we shall definitely see. After Joachim, I definitely think they are absolutely capable of writing interesting queer characters with more to them, but I'm gonna be very cautiously optimistic about it. I'm very hopeful for Pennyblood, but will not be at all shocked if it comes out kinda messy, since it's a whole ass first new entry in this new series going for kinda different shit. Kickstarter games have had mixed and messy histories, but this is one of the first ones that I really personally want to root for. I'll be cheering this game on no matter how it comes out. They got me, and I'm curious to see how it all ends up, but I'm gonna do my best to keep my expectations in check until I finish it for myself. Regardless of anything, with enough time, there will be a video on it. The second thing I wanted to do was kind of look back at the entire series. I'm going to try to do this with every single series I finish for this channel, ranking them, talking about overall thoughts, things like that. If there's an art book or some extra materials to go over, I want to do that too. I've just been thinking about how much more thorough and complete I want these videos to be, even if they take longer to create. I want to hopefully help people learn about inspirations and encourage others to explore other mediums or even works within the same medium that inspire the works that you may adore. I love that about art, and I hope these videos and sections like this are able to stir that joy within you too. So the wonderful people at the Shadow Hearts Wikia sent me scans of the art book and the info that it gives to some development insights and whatnot. The treasure troves of interviews here are really interesting. While some of these interviews were translated as I received them, others I had to machine translate myself, so after tossing and turning on it, I'm going to give more of a summary of each point and thing I found, and only use quotes on things I can verify myself. I'm not going to shittily apply machine translated words to someone because that's a shitty thing to do. I will do my best to source what I can or show pictures of what I am referencing on screen. This is my first time doing something like this, so feedback is strongly appreciated. Looking through some translations of the interviews that were provided to me, there was an interview with Matsuzo Machida and Miyako Kato, character designer of the series, about Shadow Hearts and its creation for the Italian website geekgamer.it from 2016. The translation inspiration I am pulling from for this is available on Zarathustra.com. So to start, when asked about specific inspirations of the series, Machida said,
"Since I was just a little kid, I loved to daydream. I'm fond of mythology, fairy tales, horror stories, traditions, and habits. Stories about divine creatures, the yokai, supernatural, and more. I remember that I used to ask my mother for bedtime stories all the time before sleeping. I learned that all of these stories came from a real fact, and by researching, I started to develop an interest in history. I like to fantasize on the background of historical events. It always fascinated me.
I really feel like you can feel that love of history and location and presence in bringing each and every place in these games to life. Like, I don't want to overblow it, but I really, really love just hanging out in a lot of the locations in Covenant especially. Something about them feel realized and alive in ways that other RPGs definitely also have done, but still just feels very special to me. In regards to other inspirations, he also said,
I can say I've really enjoyed books, movies, and anime. In particular, I found plenty of inspiration in the works of Keisuke Fujikawa and Go Nagai. To be honest though, what inspired my creativity the most were the stories my mother told me before sleeping.
Keisuke Fujikawa is the writer on some prolific works, such as Space Battleship Yamato, Mazinger Z, and Galaxy Express 999. I really gotta get on 999 sometime. Been meaning to do so for the longest time now. Also, thinking about it, I honestly have no clue why Devilman never came to mind with this series as an inspiration. It's like so fucking obvious in retrospect, but that's the funny thing about inspirations. To be fair, before this, I hadn't even really seen the 80s and 90s OVA, and god damn, I see the vision.
Akira Fudo is exactly what I consider a hero. He has a boulder to carry. When he becomes Devilman, he's a monster, a despicable creature. But at the same time, without that power, he wouldn't be able to protect the people he loves from demons. Apparently, this is a contradiction, but actually that's exactly how the society we live in works. The grown-up world, even the world from that age when Shadow Hearts takes place, is rotten and filled with injustices, just like the real world. The stupidity of Yuri is the purity that we all had as children. Even though people can feel hurt or look silly, they shall not lose this treasure. I myself always think that I'd like to live my life with more self-confidence, just the way Yuri does, in this world where you can't always turn your head.
I love this question about the bad endings connecting all of the games and how Machida specifically looks at Covenant's conclusion being far more positive than what tends to be associated with a general bad end.
Shadow Hearts 3 doesn't exist yet. Meant as a progression of Yuri's story, Shadow Hearts from the New World is the third chapter of the saga, but not linked to the previous chapters. But I don't think that the bad ending of Part 2 is the real conclusion. I can't tell you exactly what inspired that, but I'm sure that Yuri, the player, after seeing the destiny of Part 2, will lead Shadow Hearts 1 towards a good ending, proving that the actual conclusion of Part 2 is a positive one. I'm sure about that.
This interview does unfortunately confirm my suspicions that the pretty obvious reason for the series gradually losing the horror that made it stand out was absolutely higher-ups being worried the game was too fucked up and needed to be lightened up for marketing and broader appeal.
After the release of Shadow Hearts, I received a lot of different type of feedbacks, among which several opinions about its being too dark, too scary, about monsters being too freakish, and so on. Honestly, to me they were nothing but compliments. Although unfortunately there have also been big fishes who compare Shadow Hearts to other classic bestseller RPGs and told me, no, what are you doing? Look at how the other games are. Make something more standard. Part of what they said even made sense, and in the end I was even willing to adjust the atmosphere if that meant receiving more positive support. Let's just say it was a political decision.
At least they were able to keep what they were able to for Covenant to continue helping it stand out, but bummer that higher-ups kind of won in the end on that one, even if I still think From the New World stands out with its fairly unique vibes and setting. Does make me extremely happy again, though, to hear this is changing back to go even harder on the horror for Pennyblood. I hope it's completely fucked up. The way Machida talks about Gensurenka and relating to Karen's real feelings by the end is pretty interesting. I should have thought to read the lyrics as part of the analysis, but hey, that's a lesson going forward. Reading through, yeah. Still a weird twist, gotta be real. Like, he elaborates a bit more on this as Karen choosing to love someone like Yuri, which ends up being his dad, and just so happening to become his mom in the process after genuinely falling in love with Ben, but like, I just still think it's a weird twist. I can at least accept that a bit more as her making her own choice in this matter, and finding love on her own terms with a bit of time travel help, but I don't know, I feel like still becoming your crush's mom is still really fucking weird, regardless. Still, don't love this twist and wish they had at least sat with it a bit more and tried to better explain it within the game itself, but honestly, that's probably what Shadow Hearts 3 was going to end up covering had they gotten to do that, given the game was supposed to star Ben and Carando's dad. Speaking of that, actually, apparently he did toss and turn a bit about the ending and what exactly to do until the very end of writing everything, especially with how Karen and Yuri would end up by the end.
Regarding the ending, where Karen becomes Yuri's mother, I was actually unsure myself until the end when I wrote the script. According to a few people, it would have been better to create a happy ending where Yuri accepts Karen and the two, now survivors, become a couple. However, I prefer to keep a pure love theme. If Yuri accepted Karen, he wouldn't have had a motivation strong enough to decide to go back to the past and change it. When I finished writing the ending, I felt the way I did many years before, when it took me an entire night to decide between Flora, Nara in the Western adaptation, or Bianca. Maybe if I hadn't played Dragon Quest V, the ending of Shadow Hearts 2 would have been different.
I really gotta play Dragon Quest V, and 3, and 7, and 8. and not. I still feel like you didn't have to do the mom thing, and it could have been left at her being around or supportive or whatever in some other context if that's what he was going for. The mom thing is still weird even with this context, in my opinion. Like, I can absolutely understand a story about someone really not wanting to let go of that person that they feel really completed them in life in ways, and how moving on for them doesn't really feel like an option even if it clearly is. But like, if my friend liked me, I turned them down, and then they traveled back in time to become my mom or dad or guardian or some shit instead, I'd be pretty weirded out if I realized what was up. I gotta be real. I just feel like this could have been tackled better or approached in a way that wasn't the way it ended up, I guess, which is a bit presumptive on my part, but I don't know. In regards to the monster designs, Machida said,
concerning the design of monsters, I like H.P. Lovecraft a lot. To create monsters in Shadow Hearts, I drew plenty of inspiration from the Legends of Cthulhu. Most of the monsters seen in anime or movies are typically just deformed versions of real existing creatures, like dinosaurs or other animals. But I think that H.P. Lovecraft managed to create something that goes behind those standard schemes. Starting with Part 2, the atmosphere got a bit lighter, but the design of monsters is still loyal to the concept of the Shadow Hearts saga, even in From the New World.
I do like how we tried to stick to the otherworldly creatures out of our comprehension type feeling as the series went on, no matter how much the atmosphere changed, a way to keep the series' identity and very memorable monsters. Albert Simon being based off of Anthony Hopkins' portrayal of Hannibal Lecter from Silence of the Lambs makes complete fucking sense.
The model we used to create Albert is the character of Anthony Hopkins in Silence of the Lambs, Dr. Lecter, a gentleman that hides his madness behind a smile. The first time I saw the movie, it hit me very hard. Although Lecter symbolizes evil, in a certain way he also held a role of a dark hero. In the horror that he conveyed, you could also perceive a sort of purity, and this contrast deeply fascinated me. In Shadow Hearts, Albert was simply the bad guy, but in Part 2, where Rasputin and Yovis appear, eventually his reason to fight and idea of justice became clear. It is my opinion that every person have their own idea of justice and truth. And I thought by showing this new side of the character, the player, through Yuri, would have retained an even different impression compared to Shadow Hearts 1.
I think that idea of a sort of dark hero, even though they clearly represent evil, is what makes a lot of the villains within the series to be very good. Like he talks about here, it's contrasting views of what justice and truth mean to different people. While I don't love Albert Simon and some of the revisionism with him as much as I dig most of the other villains in the series, I do absolutely dig what they were trying to do idea-wise, trying to interrogate why people do the shit that they do, for what justice or truth they fight for. It's interesting. I also love the way Kato talks about designing Albert specifically to be really neat too. Just the ideas for design she went for and the contrast she wanted to provide that plays very well into the Lecter inspiration.
I created the design of Albert Simon basing on directions by Machida, who described him as an elegant English gentleman. Differently from De Huai, who had his headquarters in Shanghai, Albert has a very refined appearance, to the point that he doesn't even look like evil, and I hope that this might make his secret craving for revenge against society look even more terrifying.
Machida talking about Ben Hyuga also warms my heart, honestly.
Hyuga is to me the ideal father, probably owning to the fact that I grew up in a fatherless family. I would have wanted one like him, and I myself would like to become that kind of father. It was these feelings that led me to create his character. Should a sequel to Shadow Hearts ever exist, I would like to use Jinpachiro Hyuga as main character.
Something I didn't know is that Machida has actually done some work before Pennyblood as well. He's been writing novels called Akan no Grimoire, or Grimoirium Verum of the 13th, and at least according to Goodreads, something called Switch, with art also done by Kato, which both unfortunately don't have English translations. He also directed a PSP game called Arms' Heart, which never got brought west, which I'd never heard of till I read this interview. Like, this is not in his Moby Games credits, or really much anywhere else, which is kinda surprising. I have no clue how it is, because I haven't played it myself, but maybe once I improve my Japanese skills, I'll give it a shot myself and maybe even make something about it, who knows. Also wait, he was the scenario writer on 99 Nights too? That's really fucking interesting, I gotta check that out sometime now. I really dig that while historical research was important to Machida in regards to the world he was building, empathy and how people felt at the time of events was extremely important as well, which I think shows pretty well throughout the series.
I carried out an extensive research about the international situation and habits of different countries before and after World War I. But having the second thought about it, I guess that, anyway, it wasn't enough. I was particularly careful not to limit myself to a mere chronological observation of facts, but rather try to understand how people involved felt. I tried to convey in dialogue the social conditions of that age.
In regards to the creation of the Judgment Ring, he had this to say.
In order to create the Judgment Ring, we drew inspiration from beat-em-ups. The difference consists in the fact that, being the game an RPG, instead of using complicated combinations, we opted for a simple system based on timing. We created it so that, once the hit area of the ring had been visible, the player was able to instinctively understand the difficulty.
Beat-em-ups and trying to get down the simple but crunchy and satisfying nature of them down to a science makes complete sense. Genuinely adore what they managed to accomplish with this. There's an interview between Katsuhiro Ishii, director of the films Sharkskin Man and Peach Hip Girl, and Party 7, and Matsuzo Machida, at the time credited as Matsuzo Itakura, that sheds some light on even more inspirations for Shadow Hearts. Yuri is described within this interview as a mixture between Sharkskin, Samehada, and Yamada, which after watching this and Party 7 for this, wow, yeah, holy shit, that's Yuri alright. A mixture of Samehada's cool, cute, rude to the people he doesn't like style, and his endlessly endearing empathy. Like this scene where he just listens to Momojiri talk about her dreams and Yamada's kinda sleazy, bizarre, goofy antics. Yuri absolutely captures a mix of their vibes so perfectly, especially by Covenant. Really, the structure of Sharkskin in general gives a kinda tell for the vibes of the structure of Shadow Hearts' plot, even though there are absolute, pretty obvious differences. Majorly just the leads meeting due to bizarre circumstances and growing closer as the plot goes on, which to be fair could describe a lot of stories. I also really dig how they hone in on both Machida's like of characters that aren't like big, strong, tough action dudes, but dudes that feel human and like a guy you could actually possibly just know, and how Ishii specifically hones in on that idea perfectly in his films. Redline, which he wrote, Sharkskin Man, and Party 7 especially are like this. Party 7 hits on this because everybody involved is kind of a dumbass loser fuck-up, constantly trying to be the coolest in the room. Miki, especially, has got huge Travis touchdown energy.
Okay, how about this? If I become number 1, will you do it with me?
Maybe. Maybe not.
Come on, just once.
I'm also now convinced that anybody involved with the creation of Redline actually can't lose. I loved both Sharkskin Man and Party 7 a lot. You may not love them as much as me, but I still beg anybody to please check them out if you're able. At least in the US, it was a pain to find Party 7 itself. Had to get an older DVD to watch it, but it was mad worth. There is a new Third Window Films Katsuhiro Ishii Blu-ray collection, which is very nice. Unfortunately, it's region B only though, which is a bummer, but I'm still gonna pick it up for when I finally eventually get a region-free player though, so yeehaw! Blanca is inspired by Friender from Casshern, and fun fact, in Japanese, is played by Char Aznable's legendary VA, Shuichi Ikeda, which is wild as hell. Having legendary VAs play characters like this with not a ton of actual dialogue and like wolf barks of animal noises instead is pretty fun, and I hope he had a good time doing it. There's a small GameSpot interview with Saknoth at the time that sheds a bit of light on some of the process of Koudelka, which is pretty cool. It says that this interview was posted in 2006, but given that this is an interview hinting at Shadow Hearts 1 coming out and refusing to name it, and they're also still referring to the company as Saknoth at this time, I really doubt that. So I'm gonna presume this was right around the time the PS2 was being hyped up, or maybe even once it was out. In regards to the soundtrack and its creation, Hidenori Suzuki, sound programmer on Koudelka, had this to say about its creation.
As there wasn't too much music for Koudelka, it only took us about 6 months to complete the soundtrack. I believe that music for games is starting to be taken seriously. Still, the overall game direction isn't as good as in other entertainment industries like films or music. You can't only put music in a game and leave it at that. You need to give it a direction. The vision, script lines, and music, they should all be blended under one good game direction. Sadly, this hasn't happened yet in the game industry.
I love how he strongly believed in video game music being taken far more seriously at the time, though I disagree with this not being on the level of like a film or other music or something. I think all a piece of music accompanying a work needs to majorly do is fit the scenes or complement the scenes they're in well, and Koudelka's does that and then some. Straight up, I'm gonna remember Dead Forever. That's such a powerful composition to me, and Koudelka's sound design especially is top notch. I also found a stellar interview with Hiroki Kikuta about Koudelka as well. It comes from a website called rocketbaby.net from 2001, and this interview was kind of all around about a lot of things. About music, about Saknoth, about Koudelka. I really dig the story behind why Kikuta started Saknoth in the first place.
I had held many original ideas about video games and visual expression for a long time. The most important purpose is to create entertainment. When I was searching for a way to achieve my dream, I met a dominant business advisor. He introduced me to the chairman of SNK. I told him about the many pitfalls that every existing RPG had. I felt those were lacking a comprehensive insight. It is a structural defect of game production. To resolve the problem, it is necessary to get the full picture of each element of game creation at the same time. I have an ability to do that. I established Saknoth and took up my position as CEO in order to produce a new horror RPG project, Koudelka. But unfortunately, though I conceived a grand scheme to realize an innovative game system and visual expression, many old staff members from Square were not able to accept real change without hesitation. I say that the person who does not change is dead. After the Koudelka project finished, I retired as CEO of Saknoth. It was my choice.
He never has and probably never will go into why he chose to leave Saknoth after the failure of Koudelka, and that's very fair. Maybe he'd felt like he failed or there was just too much friction with the team, but who knows? Best not to pry, honestly, especially since in every interview I've looked around, he's been very quiet about why exactly he chose to resign as CEO. For Koudelka's influences, he said,
"A most impressive movie is The Name of the Rose by Jean-Jacques Annaud in 1986. I also read the original book, which was written by Umberto Eco. It is definitely a masterpiece. If you want to know some origins of Koudelka's world, you may also read Karnaki the Ghost Finder, written by William Hope Hodgson, and The Case of Charles Dexter Ward, written by Howard Phillips Lovecraft. Many fantasy novels by Lord Dunsany are also important. If you want to know about the visual origin of Koudelka, see the photographs created by Bob Carlos Clark and Jan Saudek and Holly Warburton. Those are extremely exciting works.
Again, Lovecraft is a no-brainer, but I had no clue at all about the rest. I need to give every book here a read sometime, but also knowing that Clark, Saudek, and Warburton were inspirations on the project is rad as hell. And while I hadn't looked too much into Warburton before, looking into her work now a bit genuinely really inspires me. I absolutely love photography like this, and aspire to recreate something like this someday. Just these vibes and tones and feelings. Same with Clark, honestly. Absolutely love the gothic, distant, and sexually charged vibes of his works a lot. When asked about the easiest and hardest aspects of working on Koudelka, Kikuta said,
"The easiest aspect is music composing, because I can create music by my lonesome. It makes me feel free and I feel comfort. The hardest aspect is the behind-the-scenes power play in companies. I am so tired of that. Let's get something straight. I am not a buccaneer, but rather a creator. All aspects about creation are really pleasant for me."
Given how it sounds like the clash between head and team was during the development of Koudelka, yet again, this answer doesn't particularly shock me. Kikuta loves creating, but may have not anticipated the struggle of running a team of sorts, which definitely happens in a number of creative fields. That's honestly personally why I adore editing more than like actually directing or writing as much as I used to with shorts and shit. I love creating, I love writing scripts, but organizing organizing teams to get a big project together is some rough shit. It can absolutely be worth it, but I just feel this struggle. Looking through the art book, there's different renditions and designs of Koudelka herself. They were apparently workshopping her design for quite a while until the final one. I personally really love this one quite a lot, but all of them have very unique vibes and looks that I also adore quite a lot here. They were debating leaning towards a more evil Edward, which I think could have been interesting, but honestly, I don't think that version of him would have hit as hard as what they do with him in the main game. I think losing that kinda even baseline age relatability with Koudelka and having what sounds like something closer to what they kinda did with James would have fucked up the whole dynamic, but maybe they could have made this work. I do really quite dig the design though. For James, the team bounced around a lot with the designs too, it seems, though didn't have quite the full picture of what exactly they wanted to do with the character. Like, they have these way older designs that impress more of a Zhugen from Shadow Hearts 1 kind of vibe to him. Shadow Hearts was Machida's second directorial project for Saknoth. The first was actually FLCL, which I've played a little bit of, but it's a pretty neat little Neo Geo Pocket Color mecha RPG with some neat ideas. I haven't played a ton of it at the time of this writing, but honestly might give it a shot sometime since it thankfully has an English release. Who knows, if it interests me enough, I may just make a video about it. Awaker from the New Worlds' weapon of choice is directly based off of the Gundam Beam Naginata from Gundam in general. Unfortunately, not much else to really expand upon with From the New World. The character descriptions in the art book were all surprisingly shallow, which kinda shocked me, and there's not a lot of coverage of this game at all. There's this one PlayStation Underground video that's not that great and says pretty basic shit, while attributing the devs as being from Xseed, which isn't correct at all. Like, to be clear, Xseed localized the game and published it in the West, but like, they're not the original developers of the game. There's a really great interview with Yoshitaka Hirota over at RPGFan.com that talks about his career and his history with the series very specifically, and actually does shed a bit of light on From the New Worlds' developmental woes at least. I love the way he describes his ADR work for Koudelka.
For the footsteps on human bones, I bought a lot of meat with the bones on it. I roasted the bones well, dried them, and let my girlfriend walk on them. I then ate the unused meat with my friends who helped me. It was delicious. I was making gothic and horror sounds, but I recorded and edited a lot of the sounds while having a lot of fun and laughing with my friends.
Having done some extensive ADR in college for some projects, I can attest that it is so much fun, the shit you can come up with to achieve the sounds you want and need for your project. It's so cool. Sound design is so fucking cool. In regards to Hirota's take on the tonal shift of the games after the first game in Covenant, he said,
I don't know the real reason, but there was a change in the work environment I felt during development. The first game was like a group of friends goofing around, but everyone was working frantically. It's a very old-fashioned style of game development. Since Shadow Hearts Covenant, the company became more structured and managed. For the third game, a more controlled system was established and the director was replaced in the middle of development. As a result, I feel that the weird and crazy parts of the game were hidden, and the direction and story were made to highlight the entertaining parts.
With a game like this, and probably the amount of creative clash actively happening behind the scenes, it doesn't shock me at all that the director was replaced mid-development with someone who was probably far more willing to just do what the higher-ups wanted with the direction. That's such a shame, but a story unfortunately as old as time itself when it comes to game dev and projects kind of blowing up like this. I really love this quote again about sound design and just his insights regarding it.
And I want to share this with you. Music and voice acting are the most impressive aspects of game sound. However, sound effects and voice editing are also tried and tested to please everyone. Music, sound effects, and voice. I want you to understand that all sounds are created by the same great talent and passion.
I want to do better from here on to celebrate sound design as well as compositions within games. I feel like there's such an accepted baseline standard and quality that a lot of us may not think of all the work and passion, love and care that goes behind even the simplest sound effects. I'm gonna try to do better myself with that. One last piece of info to pull from is the Penny Blood radio that have been going on that have shed a bit of light on Shadow Hearts and why exactly there was never another game after From the New World. In episode 1, Machida talks very bluntly about the fact that Shadow Hearts Hearts 3 was put into production after being approached by Aruse and Universal 3 times.
As I wrote on Twitter, I've gotten a lot of requests for a Shadow Hearts remake for a very long time, but as I explained, although we're the original creators, we don't own the IP. So on Twitter, I asked people to contact the IP owners directly. Back when I was working on the games, a company called Aruse sent them out into the world. But after From the New World, 15 years passed, and we weren't just sitting around during all that time. Aruse changed their name to Universal. I'm not even sure if they're actually the same company or not. But anyway, during that period, I was approached 3 different times about creating a new installment in the Shadow Hearts series. Each time we said let's do it, and got on board, and each time the project ended up getting cancelled due to the company's circumstances. That's what happened over all that time. The third time was especially rough since I'd gone around and contacted a lot of other previous staff members, telling them everything will be alright this time, so when it got cancelled, it ended up causing everyone a lot of trouble. So for Penny Blood, I only contacted a very limited number of people. So when I started this Kickstarter campaign, it was with a deep sense of gratitude towards all the past staff members and fans.
Damn, that really sucks. I could only imagine the struggle and pain of constantly having to stop and start a project that you're genuinely passionate about, only for shit to just go absolutely nowhere. After a certain point, it probably felt like they were just fucking with them after the constant disappointments, so I'm genuinely glad that they just decided to move on and try to create a new project instead with that same passion. Thought I'd do this as a fun little cap to things. Wanted to do this with any series just cause I think it's fun, and it's an excuse to make more backlogged lists. If I were to rank the series, it'd probably go something like From the New World at number 4, cause like you watched the video, right? This is the pop quiz now, bitch. I hope you were paying attention. Shadow Hearts at number 3. It's a mess, but it's a mess that's grown on me over time and is fairly ambitious for what it is. I respect what it's going for, even if I feel like the writing is fairly shallow at points. When it hits, it does hit, but it just needed more moments like that to make the whole thing work better, and it needed better development of its characters. Covenant at number 2, because like, holy shit, Covenant is so goddamn good. Like, the jump in quality is just fucking wild. The gameplay, the music, the writing, the ways in which it even makes the first game work better given the way it builds on Yuri as a character, and the way it even helps work with the endings of the original game so well. It really would be the perfect Koudelka easily at number 1. While not the best gameplay-wise, I don't give a shit when the atmosphere, story, writing, character interactions, music, and performances are going this fucking hard with it. A genuine all-timer that more people need to give the time of day. My favorite characters throughout the series were Koudelka, Yuri, Shania, Ricardo, Joachim, Anastasia, and Kato. My favorite OST specifically was From the New World, just such a beautiful soundscape. I lay in bed and throw on the Icaro they did for this one so often that shit is burned into my brain. And if I were to rank the OSTs, it'd probably look like this. Not to say that any of the OSTs are lesser than the others, but I just fucking adored one and From the New World's OSTs so much. All of these have great bangers though. I gave the Koudelka manga a read finally, and I'm surprised to say that it was shockingly good. With follow-ups like this that even go about carrying the name of the original material, I'm always hesitant, especially if I adore it, just like I adored Koudelka as a game. But this managed to actually surprise me a lot with how what it was going for as a continuation of the story was tackled, even if it didn't always land it perfectly, or it did some things I wasn't the hugest fan of. So we'll start with negatives and move our way to positives. This is yet again another story within this franchise that tries really hard to make Patrick and what he did in the monastery all an act of shallow manipulation by shadowy figures who want to blow up the world. To be fair, not all of them want to kill or blow the world up, but the main villain, who funnily enough again is Roger Bacon's pupil possessed by a demon, absolutely wants to and is manipulating his way to do it. Kinda like Advent Children and Dirge of Cerberus kneecapping themselves to have some kind of attachment to something from the original work. I think this takes away Patrick's agency and the weight of his actions and puts them on an evil medical organization instead, which is just really fucking lame. I think you could have cut mostly any mention of Patrick. There is actually one really great callback specifically about all of the London prostitutes he kidnapped that I think works really well. Patrick did not need to be brought back up otherwise. I really feel like him also being manipulated doesn't add much of anything to this story. Also, the monastery is still standing when, It shouldn't be. I really hope that if we had gotten more Koudelka games, they would all kind of be separate and isolated stories that weren't all that connected like this tries really hard to do towards the middle and end especially. I think Koudelka as a series could have maybe shot more for like episodic type stories possibly, with her learning more about people, the world, and herself. I feel like shit like that in the lead up to Shadow Hearts before she gets captured by the Friar Knights has to be what happened, because I know this manga doesn't continue into Shadow Hearts probably. There's way too much contradictory shit unless this throwaway line where Roger basically goes like, "You're just like my other evil possessed student. That's so weird. Am I a bad teacher?" is supposed to be the thing that connects them. I honestly couldn't tell you. There's some very unnecessary fan service that ruins a tense moment or two throughout this. It thankfully at least calms down as it continues on, but the worst one is probably the one where Koudelka gets her clothes all sliced up during a fight, and there's a whole page focused on it, and it just feels gross. I feel like some of the antagonists don't get as much time to shine as they honestly should have. The fact that the Asian man is never even named is bizarre as fuck, but maybe he's supposed to be more of a direct play on Jack the Ripper, kinda like how the twin doctors are probably supposed to be a kind of homage to Dr. Jekyll and Mr. Hyde. Alright, now for the positives. I love the style of this manga a lot. It reminds me of the feeling of looking at some of the concept arts, but just fleshed out into an entire story. Yuji Iwahara, artist and writer of Dimension W, really did some good shit here. I love how much this carries the importance of empathy to others' theme that the game itself has. How much care and empathy this has for sex workers, victims of racism, victims of abuse, Koudelka, and the trauma and tragedies she's had to endure. It's all so tenderly done, and I really loved a lot of the characters and side characters in this story. I love even more of the focus on the ghost stuff and general powers and abilities from the game. The way Koudelka harnesses the power of the ghosts and spirits she communes with, how at times she's overwhelmed by them, is really nice to see again. The way this manga handles its amnesia setup is actually really cool. Here, Koudelka actually warms up in a fairly believable way due to how she was able to find community with Joshua and the London prostitutes. It's extremely sweet to see. As a trans person, Joshua's whole deal with their own gender and presentation, and really the entire overall message of the manga being about how no one can define you and you have the ability to be whoever and whatever you want, is really heartfelt and meaningful. Joshua's entire gender deal is kind of messily handled, but for a manga from 2000, it actually was a lot better about it than I expected at all. Koudelka treats him exactly the same even after a tiny lapse of worry after the reveal. Personally, a lot of this comes off as Joshua being meant to be read as trans in some kind of aspect, though even if characters constantly misgender him after the reveal. Like, I'm not saying this is some representational masterwork, and I'm not transmasc, so it's not really my place to discuss fully about what that rep could mean to someone else who is, as I myself only know what I know about my own experiences as a trans woman. If you've read the manga and you're transmasc, I'm genuinely curious about your reading on this and would love to hear about it in the comments. If I'm totally off base, feel free to just clown on me, it's fine. Playing through these games, even when I wasn't having the best times with some of them, I felt like I was getting something fairly unique out of all of them. They were experiences I wanted to have, honestly unique set dressing in JRPGs, with some of my favorite atmospheres. Just a mixture of cozy small town vibes, beautiful horror set dressing for the most part, and some absolutely wonderful character moments and writing. While not all of it always worked, or in some cases were massively flawed, this series, even with how down I am on From the New World, is absolutely a new favorite of mine that I think is still worth experiencing in its totality. I don't regret going through it, and honestly I wish I'd played all these games way sooner, but it is what it is. I'm glad I got to experience them all through both the good games and the bad ones. I want to try to do something like this ending bit with the interviews and everything a lot more with each series I end up covering, ending the last entry of a series with this kind of collection of postmortems and interviews. Some mix more into the proper review itself to give certain things more context, but the more broad ideas for the series overall I want to leave till the end like this. So sorry if this was a tad messy, or if it was kind of rough, but I'm honestly happy that I did it. I learned a bit more about a series that I now love very dearly, even with all of my problems with it. I'm gonna figure out how I'm gonna do this with the Xeno games, given how each series within it is split, but it'll be fun to figure out. I also just really think it's important to hear and talk about creatives and what inspires and influences their works. It expands your own palette in ways and shows that the way that work orcs pass down their mimetics can be so cool and interesting. Let me know how y'all thought this was, or if y'all have any feedback. I want to incorporate more and better research into these videos. I want to take these seriously. I'm gonna miss this series for now while we all wait for Pennyblood. Thanks for watching. I hope you stick around if this series is what brought you here to this channel. Till next time, gamers. Alright, I want to, like always, give a shout out to my patrons, as always. Thank you all so very much for your continued support. It seriously always means the world to me to see that people want to support what I do on here, and so I want to give all of you a shout out. The people in my $5 Radder Magical Person tier are listed on screen currently, and the people in my $10 Raddest Magicalist Person tier are also listed on screen, and they also get a verbal shout out as well. So I also want to say thank you to Ginger, Raspe Trash Bear, and Scared Confusion for the support, but I want to thank all of my patrons in general for continuing to support me and supporting me through all of this, and just thank you so very much. If you too would like to become a patron, the link to that will be in the description. Going forward, especially with the Patreon, with this video, I put out a work in progress cut, and I want to keep doing that going forward with each video. Basically just giving about like half of a video, or just kind of showing like what I'm working on, things that might get cut later, or things that might be added on to. Basically just unfinished versions of the videos to kind of give a sneak preview of like what is coming up, what is being worked on, giving people more of an early taste of what is coming. I also want to start giving more script updates, so like once I'm finished writing something for one of these videos, I will put it up on my Patreon if people want to read through the script and see what I got cooking, see what's going on and whatnot. These are also just kind of, well, more so the work in progress video cuts are also just small ways to get some feedback, see how people feel about things, kind of just get like a small sample size of how people are feeling about it. I also really want to thank everybody who gave voiceover for this. I especially want to give a huge shout out to Media Diver for putting together just these wonderful, beautiful quote graphics and doing his like own voiceover and just editing it all together, and he just did such a fucking phenomenal job. Like, he went above and beyond what I even asked for, and to that, like, seriously, like, everybody who contributed is linked in the description, and please like give everyone in there a look. They're all wonderful people, they're all really cool and chill, and all make great shit in their respective areas and fields. But yeah, I want to thank everybody. Everyone who contributed did a fan-fucking-tastic job. Like, seriously, I am so grateful to have like friends that are willing to like contribute just anything to these projects. I always feel hesitant to ask on stuff like this, but for something like this, it was gonna make things take even longer if I just did it all myself, or if I did it with like one or two people. And so thank you seriously to everyone who contributed. It really means like the world to me. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Next, I kind of want to talk about just video plans going forward. This took a while, and the main reason it took as long as it did is because, like, I started a new job in February, and then because of that, I had to get used to, like, the schedule with that and kind of working this in and whatnot. Then I had to write the script. I had to figure out how to, like, fit in time to do that with that job and things like that, and then find time to, like, do all the editing, do all the audio stuff. And it's just like, I want to keep making long videos, and I'm going to keep making long videos. I'm not going to stop making long videos. But if I want to get more stuff out on a more consistent basis, I need to do more things, more like the Bullet Witch video, more in the sense of just being shorter or going for games that are a little faster to complete. That way I can like just have things locked and loaded in between all of the really big stuff. Because the problem was I didn't have anything locked and loaded. It's why the Bullet Witch video happened, and it's a little more slapdash than I wanted it to be. but I'm still happy with how it generally came out. Basically, I'm going to be trying to get out, I want to really get that like 1 to 2 month thing down, and I really want to focus on like, there will be more videos in regards to shorter games, and then the long videos will probably be more spread out like this, because like the next video is Xenogears, and let's just say the research portion on Xenogears is going to take a minute, along with just playing the game and a lot of other things. It's all just going to take a minute, so just bear with me, but it will happen, and it is going to happen. Same with Xenosaga, it's going to be a whole thing. In between each of those videos, I'm going to dedicate more time to shorter experiences, things that catch my attention, and I'm going to try to have things locked and loaded, ready to go for each month or two. That is my promise to all of you, and I really want to do my best to stick to that going forward. I also, I don't want to stick on this too long. I've been working at this for months, and I'm seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, and I'm like, I'm so ready for this to be done, just because, like, oh my god, I'm so tired of thinking about Shadow Hearts from the New World. But I'm really proud of this video. I'm really happy with the way it's come out. Like always, I like to give a little update on things I've been watching or playing or whatever. I haven't played shit, really. I haven't played anything really new because I've just been, again, working on this. As for what I've watched, like always, I watch stuff while I edit. I was watching that Aaron Sorkin HBO show, The Newsroom, from like 2010. That show's dog shit. It's really bad. Aaron Sorkin is one of those writers where, like, if you give him or if he goes for something that's not like a billionaire talking shit, or basically talking shit on a billionaire like Zuckerberg or Steve Jobs or something, and doing like an interesting character study like that, he will do the most like centrist ass political statement boring shit ever. It sucks. The Newsroom is bad. I could be more elaborate, but I'm not going to, because again, I'm tired. I'm done. This video's done. I'm really proud of it, and I hope you all really enjoyed it. If you're new to the channel, make sure to hit that like button. Subscribe if you have not. It really is appreciated. If you think this video would resonate with anybody, or anything that I make would resonate with anybody, please link these to anybody you think would be interested in them. It genuinely really, really helps. I want to know your thoughts on Shadow Hearts from the New World as well, so please leave a comment in the comment section if you would, if you have any thoughts, if you have any experiences playing this game, if you disagree with what I think, or have any insights yourself. I would love to hear anything and everything about just what you all think. If you've been here and you've been subscribed, like always, I want to say thank you. And I very much appreciate all of you. And if you are new to the channel and you're subscribing to the first time, welcome to the Coven.